Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everyone made it back from lunch and hope you're all having a fantastic day. So, as we know, Grab is a formidable force in Asia Pacific. And, Grab touches the lives of up to 46 million people every day. And I know I can't live without it myself. So today I'm delighted to have the opportunity to interview Alex and to be able to ask him, how you build and retain the trust of so many people with the innovation that Grab drives every single day. So welcome and thank you for joining today. All right, so let me start with asking that question. So from your very demanding seat as the president of Grab, what do you see as the biggest challenges and perhaps the biggest opportunities as well in building a digital ecosystem that people will truly trust and depend on for the long term?
Thanks, Julie, and thanks to Mastercard for hosting this great event and for you all for attending. I think today we're in very challenging times. The economic uncertainty is very difficult. The middle classes in Southeast Asia, our region, are definitely being squeezed. There's really essentially a breakdown in trust and a lot of social unrest we can see bubbling up from time to time. So it's a very sensitive and difficult time for our communities. And I feel like Grab, which was founded on trust, for those of you who don't know, founded here in Malaysia to provide safe transportation for women passengers at night. Okay, so that's a foundational trust proposition. But of course, we find ourselves now much, much bigger. We account for about $13 billion in earnings for our partners, the drivers and the small merchants, the food merchants. So we have a huge responsibility. And of course, with our consumers too, they have to trust us. They trust us with not just the services they consume, but with their financial information, payments. We now have 3 digital bank licenses as well. All of those stakeholders trust us fundamentally. So the question is, how can we contribute in this kind of environment where the economic uncertainty is really creating a lot of pressure on those people on our platform? Because of the difficulty of affordability in this kind of environment, we actually decided that we would lean into pushing down prices and affordability on our services. Because being responsible for the earnings of those partners is very important. By some third-party estimates, if those partners couldn't find earnings on our platform, unemployment in this region would be between 1% and 2% higher. So it's a massive responsibility. So rather than have the earnings on the platform start to decline in a difficult economic environment, we reduce prices. And in fact, what's happened is that the number of rides and the number of food orders and grocery orders for e-commerce has just gone up enormously because of the lower pricing. And in fact, we've been able to increase the earnings that the partners get on our platform as a result. And the other thing that happens in this kind of environment, of course, is credit tightens up. I used to work in a conventional bank. Sorry if that insults anybody who works in a conventional bank, but I used to work in a conventional bank, and I know we all tighten up our lending in this type of environment. And that's most difficult for our partners, actually, small businesses. They find it very difficult to get access to credit. And so do gig workers as well. So that's the other thing that we think we can do, is really lean into using our data science to be able to lend to people that are either unbanked or underbanked in the region. So we feel like our platform is strong, but to keep it sustainable and to keep it growing, we have to help the participants, like we did in COVID, but work with governments to help the participants to participate in the digital economy so that they can be included in the growth of that part of the economy.
So you are indeed the digital lifeline for millions of people, effectively, and people who are starting their businesses, people who are underbanked, micro-entrepreneurs, etc. So you talked a little bit about pricing already, but what else do you see as kind of the most important elements and ingredients that Grab can offer your audiences?
we always kind of think about David versus Goliath, the idea that the little guy has to compete with the big guy. So the little guys in this case are the small merchants, that might have their signature dishes, but they don't have the sophistication of the global QSR chains, for example, in terms of how to use technology. They don't have chief marketing officers like Julie to advise them on how to do demand generation. And then they don't have advice in terms of supply chain, et cetera, or cash flow, CFOs. So our push has always been to try to level the playing field so that they had access, for example, on Grab to electronic catalog, digital catalog. They get customer service, digital customer service, and of course delivery. They no longer have to just use cash. They can use digital payments with the help of Mastercard. Thank you. So all of these things kind of, in our view, level the playing field. And then the other thing that levels the playing field is the access to credit. And these micro SMEs that account for about 85% of employment in most markets, so they're absolutely critical to our society. Most of them can't get bank loans. And that's something that we feel that we can do, and we can do it sustainably.
Okay, shifting focus a little bit, you and I just had a fascinating conversation about what's going to happen with agentic commerce. So I'm sure everyone wants to hear a little bit about what are you doing already in the space of AI, and what are your plans that you can share? How do you see agentic playing a role for Grab?
Yeah, AI brings additional challenges. I think it's one of the forces in the world, not just Southeast Asia, which could result in much higher youth unemployment. And I think we all know that high youth unemployment is then related to social instability. And so it's a very, very critical question for us and our communities. Like, what are we going to do to make sure AI is a force for good and not something that creates further disruption and tension? So going back to our mission that I was talking about, we will have to help those small businesses and help the gig economy to transition into an AI-enabled world where they benefit from it and don't become victims of it. So it's a big responsibility that we have. How are we going to do that? The good news is that Grab is already quite a big AI player. We run about 1,000 AI models already, which makes us probably one of the bigger ones in the region. And a function that we already play is we bridge between the large foundation models, which are being produced largely out of the US at the moment, and then we make them more relevant for Southeast Asia. We're the only lighthouse partner for OpenAI in the region, which means we get access to foundational models as soon as they're ready, but before the official releases, and then we fine-tune them. And I'll give you an example of how important that is. When we first got the 4.0 model, we tried to use it for speech recognition because we were targeting to help the visually impaired to be able to use the app better. It only worked 45% of the time for Southeast Asia, and that was in English. That's in English. So 45% of the time, an English speaker tried to use it in Southeast Asia, and because of our different accents, different place names, etc., it didn't work. That makes it not fit for purpose. So we've had about 120,000 Southeast Asians have given us voice samples. So now it's 92% accuracy, which is not too bad, actually. Yeah. So that's one role that we can play. Another role is we're trying to improve the productivity of our drivers by giving them what we call co-pilot. It helps them to position themselves during the day, make sure that they get the maximum possible earnings that they can get. It informs them of road closures. They themselves can report road closures, using voice, so that it's not unsafe. For the merchants, we're trying to help them with a what we call a merchant chatbot, which has been phenomenal. Not only do they get the CFO and a CMO, but they also get emotional support, a life coach. One of the merchants in Indonesia, actually 2 weeks ago, was showing me her chat with her Grab chatbot. And she'd been asking about, how do I get sales up, etc. And then it got to, can you give me advice on different menu items? And the chatbot had kind of looked at the different restaurants in the area, worked out what people were searching for, worked out what the gaps were, and suggested. And then she said, I can't cook that. How do you cook it? Gives a cooking advice. then says, oh, what orders shall I put in, and give advice for which orders to put in, how long the lead time should be based on the prediction and number of sales. And then that's not all. The last part, which is absolutely the best part. The last part was she had actually said, one of the chats she showed me said, oh, can you just give me some encouragement? And the chatbot said, hey, don't worry, sis, you're doing well. Keep it up. It was so endearing. It's like AI with heart, you know? So I think that's the way that we can really help. And of course, our lending and insurance type products that we can provide also should get better and better with AI.
Is anyone else kind of worried about the marriages of the future when you can just have this quite solid relationship with your chatbot? But that's fantastic. So innovation, of course, is really what drives your business, and we love seeing the innovation that you and your team bring forward. But it can sometimes outpace trust. So as a leader of such a rapidly transforming business and with a future focus on AI and all the innovation that comes with that, how do you make sure that you can still provide that trust? And particularly when you talked about the purpose reasons that Grab started, which I never knew, and it's a really phenomenal story. So you don't want to lose that.
I think that balance is super important. I'm not going to mislead you and say that, glibly say that it's very easy to manage. It's very, very difficult. We're a tech company, so we have to experiment, otherwise we die, right? And we have something like 200 experiments running at any given day of different tweaks here and there to the services. And some of them involve AI, increasingly. Like now, for example, we're in 800 cities across Southeast Asia, which means there's no way that we can do that with manual intervention and supervision. What's happening is that generative AI is reasoning about traffic patterns, supply, demand, different times of day, production capabilities at different merchants, when they top out, when they don't. We generate 300 terabytes of data every single day. So there's no way that human beings can make good decisions. The generative AI is already outperforming. We know that, numerically speaking. But we have to have guardrails. Otherwise, there could be decisions that are made which are not in line with our mission and with our values. So you've got to have, at the same time as you encourage and reward experimentation, you have to have the governance frameworks. So we have our AI standards frameworks, which are very important, although of course they're developing all the time because we're also learning. We have guardrails around our brand, actually. And I know you're an expert in this area, Julie. So we have what we call our brand architecture, which sets out the promise that we make to each of our stakeholders, the driver partners, the merchant partners, the consumers, and to government and our communities. And we can, in a sense, we can program that into the AI. We tell it the guardrails that we accept and those that we don't accept. And that can produce sometimes counterintuitive results. Let me give you an example. When, famously, as you know, when it's rush hour or it's raining or raining at rush hour on a Friday night, like tonight maybe, you will find that the price of Grab goes up. Sorry. Sorry in advance. But I think that's quite widely known. But sometimes it really goes up a lot. If you get all three of those, Friday night, rush hour, and rain, it really goes up a lot. And sometimes that's sticker shock for people. So we've done a few things. But the drivers need to be paid, right? So you've got to get the marketplace right. But what we've done, if you look carefully, what we've done now is on those moments, there's a upward red arrow next to the price. It kind of flashes at you. It's basically saying, do you really want to buy this ride now? It's much more expensive than normal. How many companies do that? Seriously, how many companies say, are you sure you want to buy? It's a bit expensive right now. So it's kind of counterintuitive. But our feeling is that if we are transparent that way, then we build trust. And so it allows us to experiment. And then hopefully when we get it wrong, which we will from time to time, customers, because they have a better relationship with the brand because of that trust, will forgive us our small sins and then stay with us, for when the experiment is over and we've managed to do something better and more innovative.
Yeah, I love that transparency with users as well. And then maybe over time you can even give them the tips and tools of when to book and when not to, and how Surge works and all of those things. But that's a really great example. So sadly we're out of time, because I could have kept chatting to you for a long session today. But please join me in a huge thank you, Alex, for all of the insights you shared with us.